did the French Super Cup end up here in Israel? Well, this is certainly no coincidence. It is all thanks to Canadian businessman and philanthropist Sylvan Adams, who's joining us today in the studio. So Sylvan, I just want to know how you came up with this idea, because first of all, not only how did you come up with the idea, but how did you actually make this happen? This is no small feat.
So first of all, this is what I do. My activities involve projecting the Israel that I know and love to parts of the world that don't really know us. What I call addressing the silent majority, sports fans, music fans, culture fans of different kinds, who don't know us, but probably if pushed to give an opinion, have a negative opinion about Israel because of the media coverage of this region. My experience with first-time visitors to Israel, almost to a person, is they can't believe it. They come and they say, "Wow, this is not what I was expecting," and they think they're coming to a war zone. They don't realize that we are an open, tolerant, diverse, democratic Western nation, and safe. By hosting these large-scale events, and I've done a number of them,
yes,
and addressing hundreds of millions of people out there. The French Super Cup as an example. We're talking about 400 million people who follow the French league, who will be tuning into that championship game. It's really and showing Tel Aviv, showing Israel, not feeding them, as I say, hasbara, and letting them enjoy something that they watch, that is of interest to them, and through osmosis realizing, hey, Israel isn't this intolerant place. Israel is a normal Western country.
People truly don't know this country beyond the politics, but beyond the security, the bad news that they hear.
And this silent majority, they're not political. They don't care about politics. Right. But as I said, they probably have a negative impression, and I know that it's working because they see Israel as a normal country, and then their impressions do change because it clashes with their preconceptions. Well, by the way, you asked me how we convinced the French league to hold their championship game here. It happened through COVID, because all of the stadiums in France were closed. Right. They were playing their games without audiences, and we were open because we are the vaccination nation. And here we were able to host the game last year. It's the same game. We had Lille versus Paris Saint-Germain. We had a great game here.
I remember that.
And we proved that we could host it, and they liked it so much, they said, okay, we'll come back.
The power of sports. So, of course, this is what I want to know the most about, because you have made headlines for also planning to try and get Israel to host the World Cup, the Soccer World Cup, and that would be, of course, along with Egypt, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. So where does that stand right now? What can you tell us about those plans?
It will be unlikely to be able to involve Asian countries because the World Cup is being held this summer or in fall in Qatar. Right. Asia got its World Cup. But that doesn't stop us from reaching out to our friends in Egypt and Morocco. And Morocco already once applied for the World Cup, and they weren't successful in their application. But with Israel, they will stand a much better chance. So I'm actually heading to Morocco just before the World Cup. Then I'm going to Qatar, meeting high-level delegations, trying to do sports diplomacy, meaning marry the whole idea of a local, regional hosting of the World Cup, which of course would be the biggest event ever in the history of the country. And it's one of the biggest things you could. After the Olympic Games, there's really nothing bigger. But also to use this as a bridge building, regional diplomacy, peace building, people to people relationships.
For the World Cup to take place in Israel, for me, would be a dream, and I can't even imagine what the rest of the Israeli public would have to say about that. There are several other projects that you're working on. We're really just kind of touching on the tip of the iceberg here. One of the things that I know that you'll be doing in the coming month is inaugurating Ichilov's new emergency medicine hospital with the president.
The Ichilov project is really a beautiful one and close to my heart. We are building this really the state-of-the-art emergency facility. The emergency ward is the entrance to a hospital. It's what most of the public deals with, and we're building we will have the best emergency facility in the entire country. We're opening next month. The old facility was quite a mess, and it's the most important hospital in our metropolis of Tel Aviv.
And that's not the only project that you're working on.
I can tell you, I'm working on a very interesting cycling event with partners in Bahrain and the UAE. Happens to be that the second son of the Emir of Bahrain owns the Bahrain cycling team.
Interesting.
The state of UAE owns the UAE cycling team, and I own Israel's cycling team. By the way, we're going to the Tour de France. I'm leaving on Tuesday for Copenhagen, where the Tour de France will start there. The Tour de France is seen by 2 billion TV viewers, and we have Israel on our jersey. That's our name.
Yeah,
our name is Israel, and so we have a common interest. They are cycling fanatics over in the UAE and Bahrain, and we have this absolutely stunning project that we're working on together. I even have we've been invited, believe it or not. I'm in contact with the Saudi Arabian sport minister, and he has issued us an invitation for my team to participate in the tour of Saudi Arabia next year.
Sylvan, I'd just like to thank you so much for coming in and telling us about all of the work that you're doing. Super, super important to understand just how essential it is to focus on sports and cultural diplomacy and getting Israel's name out there to the world. And I will be waiting to hear news about that World Cup.
Thank you for having me.